Hi, everybody. My name is Diana Calabrese, and I am the facilitator for today's peer consultation. The purpose of this peer consultation is to provide group support to our presenter, Miranda, and to help her get the direction that she needs with the struggle she is facing in her field placement. As the facilitator, I will make sure that we follow the case consultation guide, and I will be keeping track of time. For part one, the solution-focused questions phase, I would like Allison to ask questions 1 and 5, Brianna to ask questions 2 and 6, Jim to ask questions 3 and 7, and I will ask question 4. For part two, the wonderment phase, I would like everyone to just ask questions as they pop up, like the popcorn phase. For part three, the compliment phase, I would like to have everyone go in the following order: Allison, Brianna, Jim, and me. And for part four, the debriefing phase, I will ask questions to Miranda and the group as a whole. As a reminder, confidentiality is very important in this process, and we want to ensure we are in a private space with no interruptions, and that we are not using names or identifying information regarding our placements. Are there any questions before we begin? Okay, so we'll start with Allison asking Miranda the first question.
Hi, Miranda. So in terms of your current situation, what are your best hopes for this consultation?
I think what I really am looking for, and I realize where I've been struggling, especially in writing out my case presentation notes, is that I don't really understand how to conceptualize of this group of people. And so I had kind of thought of them as like sort of a traditional advisory group. And I was like, oh, I got it. I can do this. I know how to do this. But and then I'm like, when I was doing the reading for class, I was like, are they a treatment group? But like, are they like treatment groups come together and then leave, right? And don't see each other the rest of the week. And then now I'm doing this week's reading for family. And I'm like, are they a family? And so I think there's like some elements kind of each thing at play. And that's made it such that I don't feel confident about what I'm doing, or that the work that I'm doing is strategic and not just kind of like showing up. So that's kind of succinctly, I guess I'm looking for help conceptualizing of the case in a way that provides a focus for the work so that it feels strategic.
For your particular case?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And Brianna?
So Miranda, what are your best hopes for this group that you're working with?
So I think that my best hopes for them are that they together can figure out kind of like a baseline acceptable way of interacting with one another that allows them to have a sense of community that works for them. So it's like kind of less about that they follow rules. It's not even as much that like, it's not even academic. It's just that I want them to, my greatest hope for them is that they feel a sense of belonging, and that the classroom space feels safe for them.
Jim?
Yeah, suppose that you do get that sense of belonging that is achieved, and that kind of best hope is realized. What will be different in the group setting?
Yeah, I think that like it won't be that even that students' behaviors would be different necessarily, like some of the more like impulsive behaviors, but just that they would speak more kindly to one another, that there would be a sense that they like are seeking to understand each other and have compassion for each other, and that I want them to come to school and have a sense that like someone has their back and that they have someone else's back. So I guess the kind language, I guess mostly it's like the kind language. Like right now they're really kind of go out of their way to be unkind to one another. So that's hard.
Yep. And what do you think others would notice when these best hopes are realized from the outside looking in?
Yeah.
What does it look like?
I think the students would notice that they were better able to learn, that they had like a sense of the day beyond getting through this period. I think that teachers would feel like they could get through their lessons better. I think teachers would feel like less on edge. They would notice that students were like helping each other out in class. I think that even like this could trickle to the other students that these teachers have, because they teach more than just this section of kids. And so I think that those other students that those teachers have might notice that the teachers are less stressed or like frazzled during their period.
Mhm.
And I think this could even like go extend to their home lives, to where like their parents would notice that they have more of a hopeful or optimistic attitude about school. Yeah.
And what do you think the feeling that when you this kind of more this direction is realized, do you think what is something that the group would notice differently about you?
I think that I feel less calm when I come into their room. Like I feel like I come to their room. I mean, I keep coming, so that's good. But I think I come with kind of like my armor up a little bit, not because I think they'll hurt me, but I feel like somehow I'm supposed to protect them from each other. I think that they would feel, I did an activity with them last week where I was trying to get at more like open up the ability for them to speak authentically and drop some of their masks. And I asked a question that was like, what do you think adults like just don't get about 7th grade? And I like, like made fun of myself a little bit. I was like, when I was in 7th grade, like there was no internet. Like one person had America Online dial-up, and you would be like, Christy, can I come to your house after school and watch you use your America Online? And thinking like that would maybe coalesce them or bond them. But they each kind of parroted like kind of the negative feedback that they'd gotten about themselves and as a group from teachers and from me. Like I think what they don't realize is that like we want to be like, I don't like that it's hard to be in our class and we want to be better. And it felt like it was more of kind of like the same self-blame stuff. And it didn't, I don't know. So I think that they would notice that I was more relaxed and could kind of handle whatever it is that they brought, instead of maybe feeling like I'm trying to control the outcome.
And Miranda, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 stands for meeting your goal and 1 stands for not meeting your goal, where are you now?
So it's interesting because I think like my goal for the direction for work or my goal for them.
Well, your best hope is that they're more kind to each other, and
Yeah.
so the whole that everybody's a little more, that there's a sense of belonging. So with that, where do you feel like you're at that stage?
So I think that for them, I would say that it's a 4 or a 5, depending on the day.
Okay. That's your goal of getting them to where you want them to be, right?
That's my goal, that they treat each other with respect and are able to like speak kindly to one another. So like a 4 or a 5, like they have a sense of community in their classroom.
Okay. And then, and what tells you you're at that number?
So I think, paradoxically, there's really a level of comfort in their classroom. Mm-hmm. So they know each other really well. I mean, that is what allows them to push one another's buttons. There is kind of a family-like atmosphere in their classroom, even if some of their behaviors with each other are kind of antisocial. And so there is like a level of ease that they have with each other. And the other thing I think is that they kind of start each day new with one another. So I think they're not like really prone to holding grudges. And so they could have like a really crappy day. Like, there's 2 boys that like had a physical altercation, and then like the next day they're best friends again. And so that's, you know, kind of lends itself to their 4 or 5 rating.
And then, so if it was a 4 or 5, say it was, you know, a number lower, like a 3 or a 4. How do you know you're not at that number and instead you're at a 4 or 5?
I think for those things, like I might feel like if I were a student in that class, I would feel like it was a 2 or something, but they are able to start fresh with each other. And they have some really positive moments that I think, like, they seem less fazed sometimes by their behavior than like some of the adults around do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Where do you want to be on a scale of 1 to 10?
I want them to decide that, but I think like, I mean, and this is like helping me figure out one of the issues is I don't know, and I don't know where they want to be. You know what I mean? Like for them, they might want to be a 6, and I want them to be a 10. And so I want them to be at whatever their 7 is, or whatever it is that they decide is kind of their own personal baseline as a class. So, because I don't think it's like, you know, possible for them to be a 10. They're like middle school kids, you know?
But this is more, I think, where you want your role to be, I think. So as far as like where you are at getting to the goal of what you want your kids to get at.
So then that's like more like question 1, like what's my best hope for me? Okay. That's, I mean, and that's why I almost like think it should be like 2 separate questions. You know what I mean? Because it is kind of interesting. There's like the goal that you have for you and what you're kind of hoping to get from this process. And then there's like your hope for them. I think where I am, it like depends on, again, the week, like, but this is what is part of like what causes me discomfort is I'll go in being like, I got it this week. This week I'm a 10. And like you asked me at like 2:11 and I'm a 10, and you asked me at 2:51 and I'm like, I'm a 2. You know, I feel like a level 5 competent, and I want to be like a level 8 competent. And I think what makes me feel like I'm at a 5 for myself and not at a 4 is that I am being like really strategic about it, or I'm trying to be, and I'm trying to like take in the information they're giving me and to know them like more deeply. So I don't feel like I'm just like throwing darts at a dartboard like with a blindfold. But I definitely don't have a sense of like that something's kind of coming together here, you know?
Mm-hmm. And then, so what number, what level? I'm having a hard time with this.
Oh, you're good. I'm sorry. I want to be an 8. Is that
an 8? There we go. And then what would be different, 1 step higher on the scale? Suppose you were a 9, what would be different?
Or what would I be if I were like a 6 instead of a 5 or something?
Yeah, like, so you're saying you want your goal to be an 8. Suppose you were a 9.
Okay, so if I were able to achieve my goal, I think what I would, the process would feel more organic or something. Like I think I would feel a level of ease and comfortability instead of just like this kind of like automaton, like robot, like kind of like, what do I do now? Like I think I would feel more able to be flexible and more able to kind of like roll with stuff, more flexible about rules and like adhering to community norms. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing. Because like who's to say what the community norms are? Like if it's their community, isn't it their norms? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, even if, I don't know. So yeah.
Okay. And so we'll move on to question 5, Allison.
So Miranda, I know you said you're kind of struggling with a little bit in regards to your direction for work, but what are you doing that's already on track?
So, I mean, I think like identifying the group in the first place. Like this wasn't, I brought this to my supervisor and just said I would like to start doing like an advisory type thing with this class once a week, because I had occasion to talk to a lot of the individual students, and I knew that the class itself was struggling, and I could hear from teachers that the class was struggling. And so there's not any other 7th grade that has this sort of like intervention happening. And so I think that just doing it and continuing to do it is being on track. Like I think a lot of people could say like, this doesn't really work. Like this is like a waste of the ELA teacher's time. She could just like have that period for instruction, and I'm like kind of sticking with it. And I think that that's on track.
So I know you said as well that something that you're looking to improve upon is the way that they are addressing each other in terms of being more kind. So how are you, like, what are you doing to help create a sense of safety?
So far I haven't insisted. Like there are several students that sit on the outside of the circle, and I don't force them to do that. In fact, I often will speak to the fact that like, you know, so-and-so is sitting outside of the circle. Like, how does that make you feel? Like kids that are in the circle, like, what do you think some reasons are someone might sit on the outside of the circle? So sort of like highlighting the dynamic without making the student come to the circle. So I'm giving them this, like some sense of empowerment and choice over whether or not they want to participate. Let's see. Keeping confidentiality is huge. So I'm not taking kind of anything that these students talk about and taking it outside of the space. I think too, like I'm trying to think holistically about the functioning of the whole group rather than trying to break it off and isolate individual students, or shame individual students for behavior. I'm hoping to like build compassion around the fact that like, yeah, so-and-so does this behavior and you find that difficult as a class. And so you kind of seize on it and attack it. But here's kind of what that behavior is doing. Here's the function of that behavior for this kid. You know, I'm trying to, I don't know, hold space for them to know each other differently, I guess.
So along the same lines, how are you being trauma informed in your approaches?
Oh no, I already did that with the pillars. I was trying to remember the pillars. Choice and empowerment, Allison.
I mean, yes, you did basically already cover that.
But like, I think that you're like, even just being asked that question highlights for me that I'm like not being trauma informed enough. And I know that like there are students in this class who have experienced trauma, and I know that being trauma informed is acting as if, right? Like I haven't given enough, like I do go with a lesson plan, right? I do go with the questions I want to ask for the day, and I try to like direct more of the activities instead of letting it be kind of a free-flowing conversation that feels like it's more organically coming from them. And I think that that is something I could for sure work on, is like, what do you guys want to talk? What do you want to talk about next week? Like I decided the direction for work, right? That they would be kinder to each other. Like they didn't decide that. Maybe that's not what they want to work on at all. So.
And I think you did cover the trauma informed, because you are providing a sense of safety and trustworthiness and, you know, collaboration just with the whole circle, and how you have people having a choice in what they want to do. So I think you did cover that.
And how much to say, but I mean, I do think like one of the issues is that I wrote in my case, like my write-up is that I think sometimes I am wary of moving into the taboo stuff, because I am worried that it will become unsafe really quickly. And I like even just moving toward those areas could feel unsafe for students. And so I'm a little bit like shy about going to some of those spaces that maybe I wouldn't be so reticent to go in an individual kind of session.
Okay. And then how about Brianna? We'll go with question 6.
So Miranda, you talked about how your group of students already have a sense of comfort and ease with each other, which I think is very important and great that they have that. What are they doing, or what is the group doing that is creating the sense of comfort and ease within the students?
Mm-hmm. Well, they, what are they doing to create that sense of I don't know. It's almost like a thing that you just like feel in the room. You know, they laugh a lot. They're in some ways like they spend a lot of time roasting one another, which is like a thing that is funny to them apparently, like until it's not funny anymore. They're coming to school, like that's so impressive to me that they like there's a student who comes an hour and 20 minutes from the Bronx on the train in the morning. Like, can you imagine being a 7th grade boy and like taking like 2 subways and walking a half mile to like get to school, a place you don't really want to go in the first place? But actually many of them have like great things to say about school. They enjoy school. The other things they do that are on track are they will come and seek out an adult when something's kind of going awry. They do seek out counselors when they want to talk about a dynamic. They do still see their teachers as, you know, something you kind of start to see in middle school is that things become more about the peer group and less about like the teacher as an attachment figure, but they still really do attach to all of their teachers and care about them. And they do show some level of self-awareness and like a desire for things to be different in some way.
Great. So you talked about how the students individually are on track. Is there anything that they're doing like in a group dynamic that is helping the group to be on track?
Oh, that's a good question. I think that there are little dyads and triads that feel bonded and cohesive, although that also kind of depends on the day. I would say like on a whole, all 11, not as much. But in little groupings, yes. I feel like bad for even saying that because I'm like, there has to be like really something, you know?
No, I think that was good. I think so. James, how about you, number 7?
What are some next small steps you think that you could make to reach this kind of goal, and how do you think it will be helpful? There were a lot of different ones I know, but I know, I mean, the one I gravitated towards was, you know, that feeling a realized thing. But in terms of your initial question, number 1, like, what are some next steps you think that would be helpful?
So actually, this has been really helpful because I think what I realized is my number 1 and number 2 need to work together better. Like I need to ask them how do they want, what are their best hopes for themselves? Like what is their best hope for their functioning as a homeroom? Because they're going to be together for many more months. Like how do they want those months to be? And letting them actually dictate the direction of the work instead of kind of, I guess it's like the metaphor is like, if I had like some sense that you were hungry and I like spent a whole bunch of time cooking up like a chicken a la king and then I served it to you and you're like, but I'm a vegetarian, right? Like I should just ask you what it is that you want to eat. Instead, and I'm every week like, maybe they'll like this, maybe this thing will work, instead of just kind of asking them, hey, we're going to be spending this time together every Thursday. What do you want to do with it? And I think that would be really enlightening. They might be like, we are tired. It is the end of a long day. We would like to play some more games. Rad. Like that's what I should be doing instead of like trying to drive home whatever kind of like Full House lesson of the week, you know,
Mission.
trying to single-handedly like whip up. But like that would be truly trauma informed. Allison, thank you for asking the question. That needs to be the next small step, which is really helpful.
Okay, so at this point, we're going to go into the wonderment phase. which will be about 5 to 7 minutes.
So
Miranda,
stop my video, right?
you stop your video. You're going to still hear us.
Yep.
Okay, we see she's gone. And we'll just chime in as we go, starting with, I wonder if Miranda has thought about, and I don't have anything.
I wonder.
Go ahead, James.
I wonder if. Hi, sorry. I wonder if. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I wonder if Miranda has zoomed in on a lot of stage of development stuff for this age group. The quote, like wanting them to decide the direction of the group and stuff, and where that fits with the average age of the 7th grader, 12-year-old, 13-year-old, 14-year-old.
I wonder if Miranda has gotten any feedback or has consulted with the other instructors that work with this group of students, just to kind of better understand maybe what type of activities would work best for these students.
I wonder if Miranda might be being a little bit too hard on herself, and if she's seeking too hard for direction for work that she may already be developing.
And I wonder if she has any feedback from the parents of the students.
I wonder if this is the responsibility of a intern at a field placement to coordinate meetings between teachers that are not meeting. That's the first part of the case, was how the teachers aren't talking so much to each other, and they have different lesson plan styles. And I wonder if that doesn't fall on her shoulders as an intern, because that sounds like the work of an employee.
Okay, so you know what? We'll move forward. We'll go right to the compliment phase. One compliment from each person. Oh yeah, and we're inviting Miranda back, and welcome back, Miranda. I'm sorry. And we'll start with Allison with a compliment.
Miranda, I love how critical you've been thinking about this case and the situation. I think it shows a lot of depth, and how much you value your work with this particular population.
Yeah.
Miranda, I'm really impressed with your ability to tune into the students, their situations, and the experience they're having in the school, and just to see how you've grown and just how you're even more ready to tune in further to what they need from your group.
Okay, thank you, Jen.
And Miranda, I'm really quite impressed with what I get as your creative side. You're very creative, to continue to thinking of new strategies and being very strategic. Also, just your inherent awareness to what is happening around you, and an openness to how it could be better, as opposed to just cruising. So yeah, I'd say extremely creative and strategic. You remind me of someone that takes this home and wants to go in the next day and do it better than he did the day before.
Thank you, Jim. And Miranda, I'm very impressed with your commitment and your passion for this, and how you really are taking in the kids, your empathy for the children, that you could feel the different senses of all of them, and how you want to help create a better environment for them to feel safe and comfortable. So good job. And so we can all come back now, mic's on, and we're going to do the debriefing. So we're just going to touch base with you, Miranda. I'm going to ask you, how was this for you? How did you like this process?
You know, it was painless, you guys. I liked the process a lot, and I kind of was like skeptical, I guess, because the questions are so kind of prescriptive, and I did type them out, some notes beforehand. I guess I was impressed with how you guys were able to like deviate from the question somehow, or massage the questions even just like slightly differently. And also just like in the moment when you're talking about it, you do end up saying things that perhaps you hadn't thought before. And so I actually found it really helpful. Like, I already feel that question about like what it take to get me to whatever number. And I said I was like a 5. I already feel like a 6 or 7 now. Just like in being like, oh, like it's amazing how having like a next step, but also the next step isn't just like, I'm going to make a PowerPoint, blah, blah. It's like, oh, it's like a philosophical shift in some way that is just really helpful.
That's good to know. Okay, so for everybody else, how do you think it went? I didn't pick any particular order to go in. If you want me to, I will, but okay, James.
I'll go. Well, kudos to both of you for going first. It is a very nice job at moving things forward. Can you guys hear me? Your faces are all frozen. I'm sorry.
Hey,
Can you hear me?
You're a little bit laggy.
Yeah, I think I need to do. I will do this at another location next time. But yeah, Dinah, you kept things moving really well. My only concern was that part 1 was too long. That we might have chomped into the other stuff, but it's the first time. We'll it doesn't matter, it'll get. So like the timekeeping thing is tough when we get going down a rabbit hole. And I think we did a really good job talking about not the case, but about this,
Right.
which is the purpose. And it's really hard for me to not go, oh, okay. So so that was really productive.
Very good.
Go next.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
You're fine.
I agree with you, Miranda. I definitely was a little apprehensive in terms of how prescriptive the questions are. And especially the 2 questions that I had, I didn't feel like I had as much control over the direction of the conversation. And I wanted to try and gear them a little bit more towards Miranda. So that's definitely something that I want to take a focus on the next time that I'm a participating group member and I'm asking questions. Just finding a way to kind of even gear like the more generic and less specific questions towards the specific situation. But yeah, Diana, I think you did a really good job of directing the conversation and moving things along. And something that I personally struggle with is the wonderment phase. I just feel like I really am struggling to come up with those thoughts and comprehensive questions. So that's something that I plan on focusing on for the future as well, too.
Thank you, Allison. Okay, Brianna.
I was just going to say, I'm really impressed with how well we all work together. I mean, with this just being our first meeting, I already feel really comfortable just working with all of you. I also am really impressed with how well you facilitated. I know one of my just personal traits is that if I feel like something's, like I take the lead even if I shouldn't. So, but you just had control over it the whole time. I never felt like I needed to cut in, which I was worried about. So I'm just really impressed with how you directed all of us and just helped keep us all on track.
Thank you. And yeah, the process is it's different. It's like everyone was saying, a couple of you were saying it's very prescriptive, and that wonderment phase is hard. Even the compliment phase, I was afraid, prior to having the meeting, what was I going to say? But it all kind of just came out naturally. And I like how it seems that Miranda answers her own questions in the end. Like in the end, it's just the whole process, I think, is to get a better idea. And she already had the idea in her head. She just needed to share it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was wonderful. I am going to stop the recording and thank you all for being here.
If you stop the recording, does that mean the thing stops?
No.
Okay,